Hello everyone, welcome to a bonus episode of the Age Group Triathlon podcast. This is the counterpart of the bonus I released the other day where I'm looking at Ironman race day nutrition because it is different enough from 70.3 race nutrition to warrant a separate episode. Now, if you take on an Ironman, you need to have a really clear nutrition plan going into this event. You can't just have a few gels, grab whatever it is they have on the course and hope to get round, okay? This will result in disaster. The amount of diarrhea and vomiting issues that you can experience, especially on the run, the energy levels that will absolutely sort of drop out of the floor if you don't have enough food. This is really a tightrope to walk between not eating enough and eating too much, and we really need to sit down and come up with a really good plan and practice it, which is what this episode is all about. Now, there are visual components to this webinar, so if you'd rather watch the video, okay, it's going to be down in the show notes for you to go and follow. Without any further ado, let's hop straight in. Hey everybody, and welcome to my free webinar on Ironman Race Day Nutrition. This subject is massive. This subject is so important. And if you are new to Ironman, or if you had trouble with your nutrition before, I really want to help you understand how it is that you can improve this vital part of the day. Because there is no way that we can get through our race day without having a very keen eye on our nutrition. Now, heads up before we get started, I am suffering with a little bit of a cough. I'm past the worst of it, but if this webinar is broken up a little bit, if there's quite as much flow as normal, that's because I'm editing out the bits when I'm clearing my throat. So, let's kick on and learn as much as we can about Ironman Race Day Nutrition. So a bit about me before we get started. I've been a professional triathlon coach since 2016. I've got over 50 triathlon finishes to my name, from sprint to Ironman. British Triathlon High Performing Coach, that's the highest level of education you can get. And I'm a certified nutrition coach, as well as being an Ironman certified coach. So I've like to think I'm pretty qualified to know what I'm talking about in this instance here. You know, I've got the qualifications, I've done the theory, and I've walked the walk as well. Nutrition will make or break your race. It doesn't matter how much you train. It doesn't matter how fit you are. If your nutrition goes backwards on the day, you'll probably fail to finish. Everything that we do is anchored in the nutrition, and people call it the fourth discipline. I mean, people also say strength is the fourth discipline, transition is the fourth discipline, nutrition is the fourth discipline. It's all part of this this rich tapestry of triathlon. All these things that we need to cover, but nutrition for Ironman, it really is the keystone. If your nutrition goes wrong, everything else goes wrong. And in fact, you might as well not have bothered doing the training if your nutrition goes wrong. So we really need to pay careful attention to this. So I'm going to share with you a little bit about my early triathlon journey. So for the first couple of years in the sport, I was racing 7+ times a year. That's just triathlon. That's not including running, cycling, swimming events that I did as well. Podiuming early on in my career at some small events. Won the 5K club championship with my local club, and I was able to run a 1:34 half marathon. But then, record scratch, here I am at my first 70.3 and catastrophic implosion. So how did I end up walking the run course looking quite as bad as that? Well, poor nutrition was the primary factor. So on the bike, I think I probably ate an energy bar and half a bottle of water. I was, I can see now looking back at my race file, just how much I slowed after that first kind of half an hour, sort of hour. Well, I was going strong for the first part, and then I really started to fall off a cliff. But I came off the bike and I thought, nah, this is it. This is fine. I'm good on the run. It's time to take some scalps. It's time to really push on. So I ran past an aid station as I started the run. Well, after about sort of 2 kilometers into the run, because I wanted to maintain my momentum. And this is a classic mistake that triathletes make. They want to maintain momentum. The result, catastrophic implosion. It was about 500 meters after the aid station. I just couldn't run. My legs just wouldn't let me. And this was avoidable. Now, don't get me wrong, my training could have been a lot better. I don't think I was quite ready to put in a strong middle distance. But everything that I'd done, to get ready for that race, all of the hours training, all of the research I'd done, buying all the gear, it all fell apart on the day. because I neglected my nutrition. And like I said, a half marathon PB of 1:34 ended up taking me 2 hours and 56 minutes to complete that half marathon on that 70.3. That is nearly double the distance, so the duration to complete that. That is how badly things went. So let's kick off doing some basic theory on macronutrients. So we've got carbohydrates that come in the form of grains, fruits, vegetables, and sugars. These are easily digestible. They are really fast energy sources, so we can consume them, and within, sometimes as little as sort of 10-15 minutes, we can start to get the benefit of those. Fats, they make up largely dairy products and oils, but you can find them in other areas as well. But generally, if you think about milk and eggs and meat and that's where people tend to get a reasonable amount of their fat from. Protein itself, it comes from animal products, pulses, soy. There are plant-based options as well. This is incredibly vital for our recovery. And also for muscle maintenance, muscle growth. We're not bodybuilders, but we do need to support our training with protein. If we fail to, then we're going to end up really compromising our our training. We're not going to end up performing as we should do because we're going to be constantly fatigued, and our body just isn't really going to get much fitter either. The training just breaks you down. It's the recovery, it's the sleep, it's the protein that actually makes you stronger and fitter. Very few foods out there contain a single macronutrient. So if you take cheese for an example, you can say, oh yeah, that's a good source of fat, that is. It is, but it's also got protein in it. So there are very few, I think, vegetables are probably the exception there. They're generally, almost exclusively carbohydrate, but a lot of sources, they have a mixture of these in there. So, don't simply see, oh, that food is that macronutrient, that food is that macronutrient. It shouldn't be as much of a mouthful as it is. You should really, look at it from a broad spectrum and look at the ingredients on the label to give you an idea of what's in your food. Carbohydrates are king on race day though. They are easily digestible and this should be our primary fuel source. So give us this quick energy boost. They're easy to transport, easy to digest, they're cheap, readily available, you can pick them up really easily, and they don't go bad or curdle in the heat. If you think I'm going to, follow the carnivore diet and you have some beef jerky in your jersey pocket, by the time you get 70, 80 miles into your ride on a hot day, you're not going to want that beef jerky that's been in your pocket for that long. It's going to be rancid. So, carbohydrate really is the go-to. Don't listen to people who tell you that carbs are bad. They don't know what they're talking about. Glycogen. This is our human performance battery. This is also known as blood sugar. So when people talk about having low blood sugar, glycogen is often measured as blood sugar. So there's the amount of glycogen in somebody's blood will indicate how much kind of energy they have available. It's the battery that hopefully starts at full, but it is going to drain over time. So we have around about 90 minutes available to most athletes when they're at the start line. For some people, it'll be closer to 60 minutes. For some people, it could be closer to 2 or 3 hours, but 90 minutes is generally the average. And we have a real rapid performance decline after this point. It's known as bonking or hitting the wall. You may have heard marathon runners talk about hitting the wall. A lot of the time, this is because they don't eat enough. They don't really need to eat much during a half marathon. When they take on the full marathon, they're woefully unprepared. Don't eat enough, their body just runs out of juice. It's like trying to run a car without any petrol or without any charge in it. It's just not going to go anywhere, no matter how fast that car is. It could be a Ferrari, but it's still without enough fuel in it, it's not going to work. And think about this. As adults, we generally need between 2,500 and 3,500 calories a day to function. With less than that, we're going to find ourselves in a calorie deficit and lose weight, which isn't generally a good thing when you're training for a triathlon. But when we are on race day, we are going to need to replace all of those bank calories because we need to take into consideration the fact we're racing at the same time. So we could probably be looking for around like 4,000 calories to ingest. This needs a lot of thought. This needs a lot of attention. So, how do we keep our glycogen levels topped up? Well, carbohydrate is by far the quickest way to replace your glycogen levels. So it's so easily digestible, it's easy to break down. You have the GI index, where something that's really high on the GI index, such as glucose itself, scores 100. If you go much further down, you look at some much more sort of starchy vegetables, and they are a much lower GI number, which means they take longer to digest, but they have a slower release of energy. If you have just a bag of Haribo, that will give you loads of energy for about an hour or two, and then you'll crash hard after that. Whereas if you were to have something more like a sweet potato, that will keep you a lot more fueled for longer. You won't get that real big boost of energy quite as quickly, but it will keep you topped up for longer. So you can have a variety of sort of sports nutrition products that we can buy off the shelf that we're going to get into, gels, bars, chews, all of that. But real food, we can't afford to look past real food as Ironman athletes. Now, if you're doing a sprint triathlon or Olympic triathlon, yeah, you don't want to be thinking about this. But if we're going to be out there for 17 hours, we're not just going to get by on sugar. Okay, we're going to want something that's good. We're going to want something salty. We might even want something that's fatty or something that has a small amount of protein in it, if that's going to settle our stomach. Because being able to keep running during the Ironman marathon is the most important thing. And yes, if you were to have something like a pork pie that's really salty and has protein in it, but it settles your stomach and allows you to keep going, that is much better than saying, well, I heard somebody on the internet say that you should only have carbohydrate in your race and end up walking the last sort of 20, 30 kilometers of the run because they cannot look at another gel. So, real food absolutely has a place and we need to experiment with that. So a gel is the quickest way to boost your energy. Whenever I go out for a session, I always have a gel with me because the way I see it, it's a little get out of jail free card. If I find myself with a really low blood sugar level, if I find myself starting to bonk, starting to crash, I've neglected my strategy, I thought I could get home, but I couldn't, I'll have a gel. And these are a semi-solid made up of almost exclusively sugar, really easy to digest for most people at least. It gives you a nice quick energy release. They don't sit on some people's stomachs very well, so try different manufacturers, try different consistencies. Some are a lot thicker and goopier, some are much more watery. Can easily be carried in a pocket. You can carry 60 grams of carbohydrate in a little gel packet. That's an awful lot more efficient than carrying around. Imagine if you had sort of the same carbohydrate in like a bag of crisps or something, as an example. It's really convenient for us to carry with us on the bike. There's only so many you can stomach at once. They may say on the back of the packet, have 3 an hour. Okay, if you are doing a half marathon or maybe a marathon, if you're around a 3 hour marathoner, maybe that's the strategy. We're going to be out there for 17 hours up to. I mean, I hope you're going to be a lot faster than that, but we have to prepare for the worst case scenario. And flavor fatigue, again, is a real risk. If you just get apple flavored gels, you're going to be sick of them by the time you get 2, maybe 3 hours into the race. Having a rotation of flavors, maybe even different sort of gel manufacturers from different companies, this can help eliminate that flavor fatigue. But again, you will end up with a kind of a texture fatigue as well. And these are expensive. There is no way of getting around that. Now, if you buy a big box of them, that's the way to do it. That's nice and economical. But you can't afford to fuel every single session with these expensive gels. When you get to the last sort of 6 to 8 weeks of your training, you should be fueling most of your long sessions with these gels. Pay the premium, train your stomach to get on with this nutrition. Because if you don't, then that is going to really increase the chance of things backfiring on race day. But if you are 6 months out from your race, you can just get by with Jelly Babies, Haribo, anything like that that's still sugar based but isn't those products themselves. Energy bars are the original sports nutrition product. Okay, they've been making these for a long, long time. They're an oat-based energy source, so much lower on the GI index. They're binded with sugar and quite often have fruit in them. They are harder to digest, which makes them less suitable for the run. So some people can wolf them down on the bike, no problem. But as soon as they start running, that jostling up and down of your stomach when you're running, it does lead to sort of making things a bit harder to digest. I find, and a number of people do, they sit better on the stomach than gels. If you're at a low intensity and digestion isn't such of an issue, then having these, they can sort of line your stomach with something a little bit solid and make it feel better. Now, If somebody's going to be out there on the course for 7 or 8 hours, if somebody is a professional or very elite Ironman athlete, okay, they could get by with just sugar, just liquid diet. So that is gels and carb mix. They can just get away with that. But most of us, we're going to be out there for longer than that, and we're going to want something solid to sit on our stomach. But again, we're all individuals. If you don't feel the need for it, you don't feel the need for it. Homemade alternatives are cheaper. So there are lots of, very basic recipes you can find for homemade energy bars that are cheaper than getting the ones that you can buy from sports nutrition websites. But you do have the convenience, and these are obviously wrapped up nice and easy for you to open up easy on the bike. If you have energy bars wrapped up in foil, that might end up being a bit more sort of a faff. You might have them crumbling apart as you're riding. So it's up to you to decide what the best option is, but it's a good way to keep costs down. Carb mix, I touched on this a minute ago. So this is powder that's added to your water. So it essentially turns your water into sort of sugar water almost. Which, there's a lot to be said for that. It's very easy to digest, it's quickly absorbed into the body, and every sip that you have of your water also delivers some carbohydrate as well as hydration. Now, this can be an issue if you are looking to, if you're doing a very humid race and you need to be taking on large amounts of water, but you don't necessarily want to take on that much carbohydrate, then you may want to have that split between, say, you may have some pure water on its own and some carb mix, or it may be that you need to take on a high concentration or a low concentration of sodium, and you want to have a separate bottle where you're getting your sodium from, which we'll touch on in a minute, and one where you get your calories from. It's a big topic. These are easily digestible. They can be mixed to taste. So if you find the mixture that you get quite a strong mixture, so if you put the 3 scoops in your water and you find that a bit sweet, you can use 2.5. You really can control that. And this might include electrolytes. Some of them include salt in them as standard. Some of them are just straight energy. Okay, so you can, again, when you create nutrition strategy, you can work out which way you're going to go about that. So a bit more on electrolytes. So we need to replace salt that is lost through our sweat. We lose salt when we're sweating. That shouldn't be news to many people. We do need to replace that salt because it's really essential for allowing the movement of water through our cell membranes. If you do not consume enough salt, your body is unable to to take the water out of your organs, and that causes a condition known as hyponatremia, where the main symptom of it is that your brain swells inside your skull until you end up going into a coma and blacking out. Okay, now it's very rare. You have to drink an awful lot of water and no sodium to be able to get that deep, but it is an issue. So we do need to make sure that we're replacing our salt because our performance will also fall off of a cliff if we don't have enough sodium. The sodium you need is going to depend on you as an individual, how much you sweat, how salty your sweat is. And it's also going to depend on the conditions that you're racing in. If you're in a very humid condition, that is something that you're going to need to take into account. Now, every long distance race is going to have aid stations. So it's going to have food and water and drinks out there available for you to use when you are racing. They'll be available on the bike and on the run course. Now, on the bike, they tend to be more split up. On the run, they tend to be closer together. So a number of Ironman events, you can find them like official Ironman events between every 1 and 2 miles. Whereas if you're doing sort of an unofficial distance, you might only have 1 or 2 a lap. Okay, this is one of the things that you get when you pay the premium to go and race an Ironman event. Now it's critical you try the nutrition they're offering ahead of time. You can't afford to just try a gel for the first time on race day. So do your research, find out what is it they're offering, email the race organizer. If it's an official Ironman event, there's a good chance that they're going to have Morton gels, they're going to have Morton drink mix and precision fuel and hydration for electrolytes. But again, check for each individual race. I know that's the case in Europe as of 2026. In the future, that's going to be different. These aid stations, they can be chaotic, especially on the bike. So if you're racing in the UK, where you're going to be moving to the left-hand side to collect your bottles, keep to the right if you're not planning to use the aid station. If you're completely self-sufficient, stay out of that mess and move to the right. Whereas if you do need to stop, make sure that you pay attention and try not to change your mind last minute and swerve across a bunch of cyclists if you want to grab something to pick it up to eat or to drink. Plan ahead of time. What are you going to get at each aid station? What are you going to pick up? And also have a plan of, well, what happens if my nutrition falls off of my bike? How am I going to get around that? Special needs bags. These are your nutritional lifeline. So every official Ironman event, you will have the option of these, but you normally need to opt in. So when you enter or post entry, you can email them and request a special needs bag. This is a bag that you can access once every lap on the bike and on the run. So on the bike, you may only get it twice, whereas or maybe even once in some cases. Whereas if you are on the run, you're going to have access to it 4 times. Use this for real food, for spares and other bits that might, be a real lifesaver at the time. So I had a conversation with an athlete of mine on my podcast about him attempting Ironman Wales, and he said that the sausage roll that he put in his special needs bag saved his life on the run. And this is a guy who I had a conversation with ahead of time. What's our nutrition plan? What are we going to eat? We're building the plan. Because honestly, I can stomach gels really easy. Like, I'm just going to stick to those. I said, look, please, just stick something in there that you find yourself craving at the end of a long bike session, at the end of a long run session. What is it that you want to eat? And put one of those in your special needs bags, okay? So that you can fall back on those. And yet, lo and behold, when he was, a good like 16 hours into the race, 15 hours into the race, his stomach was not happy. And he had that sausage roll, and it really lifted him up and pushed him onto the finish. So, real food, absolutely use it. Put it inside your special needs bag. Put a variety of different things in there. Anything you don't use will go to landfill. So, make sure that you don't put anything in there that's too expensive. So if you were thinking, oh, I might put a running jacket in if I get cold or anything like that, don't put anything too precious in there because it will just get chucked. But these special needs bags, they've saved many a race. And if you're a first timer, you 100% should get these and just jam it for loads of goodies, things that you think that you might want. You cannot flag your race nutrition. You will fail to finish, and I can say that with certainty. If you just turn up and think, oh, I just have like a bit of flapjack or see what they've got on the course, you're going to fail to finish. I can say that with a good like 80% certainty. And what worked for 70.3 is not going to work over Ironman. Over 70.3, you can make nutritional mistakes and often get away with it. If you finish your 70.3 and you cross the line and your stomach's starting to feel a little bit unsettled, at that point, you're not even halfway through the Ironman. So you really do need to think about your strategy and we really need to nail it down. Because when nutrition goes wrong, the wheels really come off. So you get nausea and vomiting, constipation, diarrhea, stomach cramps. You're going to slow to a walk on the run course, and your performance ends up being determined by your stomach rather than your legs. Your training will count for nothing. If the speed that you can move at is determined by your stomach, you are going to have a horrible time out there on the course. It's going to be miserable. I talked to somebody once who I asked them how their race went in terms of my stomach, thinking about it. Said I had to make myself sick in the Ironman Portaloos. It doesn't even bother thinking about. So, how can we prevent disaster? Well, there is no way to guarantee success, unfortunately. The very best professional Ironman athletes, they still trip up here. They still make mistakes. They still have races that fall apart on them because their body just rejected the nutrition on the day for whatever reason. Sometimes it's swallowing salt water. Sometimes it's they lost their nutrition, it fell off of their bike. Some days, I've had it myself, the body just goes, yeah, you know what we've been doing for the last 2 months? Not today, sunshine. I don't want that anymore. So there's only so much we can do, but we do need a plan because a plan is going to put us in much better stead. So, what goes into a nutrition plan? How many grams of carbohydrate an hour are we having? Some people swear by 60, some people say 80, some people 100. Casper Storms, who won the Ironman World Championship last year, I think he had 160 grams of carbohydrate an hour. Do we need to do that? We need to look at these numbers. We need to figure these things out, and we need to go, okay, like what is my target, and how am I going to get there? What form is that carbohydrate going to take? What real food are we having? Are we having gels? Are we having chews? Are we having bars? Are we having carb mix? What are we replacing at the aid stations? How much fluid do we need to take on per hour? How much salt do we need to consume? How are we getting that, especially on the run? How do we even transport our nutrition? Okay, we've decided that we need to take sort of 10 gels, 5 bars, and 2 packets of chews on the bike with us. Where are we going to put that? We need to work that out. And we also need to look at what's available on the course, and we need to plan around that. Now, you can get a nutrition consultation with me if you want to work with me to write your plan. I can help you choose an hourly intake target, get ideas on the best ways to hit this target, choose the right bike upgrades to carry that equipment around with you, understand how to troubleshoot on race day. If things start to go wrong, what can we do? How do we react? How can we be dynamic with this rather than just following a plan blindly? This is going to put you in the strongest possible position on race day. 90 minutes with me to sit down and get your nutrition right. So it's £75 for that 90-minute session, which when you consider all of the other expenses that come with an Ironman, when you consider how much you paid for your bike, for your race entry, for all of that, that's really not an awful lot to be able to talk to a professional to be able to help get your plan nailed down. And everybody who gets one of my nutrition consultations also gets a free copy of my nutrition course. Now, with this course, it would allow someone to create their own race day plan. Helps you select carbohydrate, fluid, and sodium targets, ideas for reducing stomach upset, really understand the why behind the nutrition and why we're making the decisions that we are. If you've got a bit of a scientific mind, if you're a curious person, that will help, gives you pragmatic advice on how to plan your nutrition, how to overcome obstacles, and how to adjust when things go wrong. If you want the nutrition course on its own without the consultation, that's £25, which is chicken feed when we're looking at the overall costs of an Ironman. To not get this course, to think, oh yeah, I'll work it out. You could then find yourself on the Ironman run course, walking at 20 kilometers to go, feeling like you're going to be sick any minute, thinking, I really got my nutrition wrong, and everything's gone up in smoke as a result. Maybe I should have got some help with that. Okay, this is a real no-brainer for me. And the first 2 modules are free. So you can download the link underneath this webinar, wherever you're consuming it. The link is underneath the webinar, 2 free nutrition modules. Get stuck in, download it, start learning, start understanding the theory behind it, because that's going to help set you up for success on race day. Because otherwise you are just leaving things to chance. Don't leave your Ironman performance up to chance. So check that course out today, have a look, book a consultation with me if you want some one-to-one help. And my final piece of advice for you is never trust a fart on the Ironman run course, because you never know what's going to come out. All right. Thank you for your company. Thank you for coming along and watching this or listening to this if you listen to the podcast. If you haven't already found my podcast, it's called the Age Group Triathlon Podcast. Look it up on Spotify, look it up on Apple Podcasts or wherever else you get your podcasts. And I'm wishing you the very best of luck with your Ironman training and the race itself. Take care now. I really hope you found that useful. I implore you not to get complacent about your nutrition or just focus on what has worked previously, and to really come up with a solid plan to give you the best chance possible of achieving your goals. Thank you once again for your company. Please leave me a review if you found this useful, and I'll see you all very soon for the next episode.